Well, there is a massive coordinated attack happening right now. Lots of Israeli money being spent trying to neutralize or cancel Tucker Carlson for being America First Christian. They're trying to silence Candace Owens for being a Christian and being America First. They've deplatformed Nick Fuentes for being an America First Christian. They've called us here at Redacted anti-Semites after we said we must stop funding the genocide in Gaza, stop sending our weapons and money there. We should take care of Americans first. That's what we said we would do. The neocon Israel First crowd was out in force, reminding us all how vile they are, trying to cancel America First patriots who don't want our government run by foreign money. Watch.
What do you mean we don't cancel people? We canceled David Duke. Donald Trump canceled David Duke. We canceled Pat Buchanan. We canceled the John Birch Society. We canceled Joseph Sobran. We canceled pornography on TV. We cancel stuff all the damn time. Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters, American haters, Churchill haters. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them. It's called the market system. They don't have a lifetime job like a bureaucrat who we're going to protect. And if they're your friend, there's something wrong with you. No hit.
And today, Israel First Ben Shapiro out to cancel Tucker and Nick Fuentes.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes. They call themselves the Gropers. They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution. They admire Hitler and Stalin. And that splinter faction is now being facilitated and normalized within the mainstream Republican Party. The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend.
I can say, first of all, he's a good friend, but okay. But long before all of this modern day canceling, all of this deplatforming, there was a man who showed us exactly how this movie would play out. That man is Patrick J. Buchanan, who turned 87 years old this weekend. As Mark Levin just pointed out, they got him canceled. He was the OG.
We canceled Pat Buchanan.
He was the OG, original America First conservative, and really the first modern one they canceled. So we thought it would be instructive to look at an America First patriot in the vein of George Washington, because Buchanan refused to bow down to the globalist agenda. He refused to bow down to foreign lobbies. He's tough. He made America First the cornerstone of his mission when he ran for president. He was canceled by the establishment RINOs in Washington, D.C. He said out loud what everyone in Washington said behind closed doors. He was brave enough to say it out loud, that America should protect its borders, its jobs, its sovereignty, stop the flood of illegal immigration into our country, that we shouldn't send our sons to die for foreign wars or foreign lobbies, that the United States should put our own citizens first. Imagine that. And for that, they called him a racist, an isolationist, a bigot, and they canceled him.
We canceled Pat Buchanan.
Yeah, you did. Mark Levin, sound familiar? I remember watching the 1992 Republican National Convention as I was a young Republican at my high school at the time. I was in the Young Republicans Club. This was when I was first learning about American politics. I was 15 years old at the time. I remember watching Pat Buchanan's speech. I didn't know it at the time how impactful it would be. It's perhaps the most infamous moment of Buchanan's career. He delivered what's now called the culture war speech. He warned that America was in a religious war for the soul of the nation. He railed against abortion. He railed against feminism, trying to force women into combat. He railed against crazy environmentalists. He railed against getting involved in foreign wars. He railed against the LGBT agenda. It was only LGBT. It was LGB. I don't know whatever the agenda was back in 1992. It wasn't plus, because it was taking over America. Watch.
Friends, this election is about more than who gets what. It is about who we are. It is about what we believe and what we stand for as Americans. There is a religious war going on in this country. It is a cultural war as critical to the kind of nation we shall be as the Cold War itself, for this war is for the soul of America. My friends, We must take back our cities and take back our culture and take back our country. God bless you, and God bless America.
It was a lightning bolt moment for conservatives who really felt like that they were finally being heard. It electrified the GOP base, but it horrified moderates, liberals, and RINOs alike, like Dick Cheney. And the media, they flipped out about it. They freaked out. How dare he tell the truth about what's actually happening in America? Supporters saw it as prophetic, though. Really a sort of declaration of the moral battle that would dominate the next 3 decades. When he said there was a religious war, that was the moment the political establishment declared war on him and on the on the movement that he represented, a Christian America First agenda that kept us out of wars, closed our borders, fought against communism and socialist policies. But the thing that got him canceled was singular. Buchanan was one of the first mainstream conservatives to openly criticize Israeli influence in U.S. politics. How dare you, you anti-Semite? In the late 1980s and early 1990s, he accused the Israel lobby of dragging America into unnecessary wars, especially during the run-up to the Gulf War. He called out the fact that Israel was basically asking America to do its bidding by going to war. Remember when Benjamin Netanyahu came before Congress, told us that Saddam was doing all of these horrible things? Yeah. He referred to Congress at that point as Israeli-occupied territory, his words. A phrase that set Washington on fire. That was the phrase that got him canceled.
We canceled Pat Buchanan.
Yeah, you did. Today, you can see that same civil war playing out inside the conservative movement. On the one side, the fake conservatives, the Israel First crowd, the endless war crowd, the neocons, people like Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Ted Cruz, Randy Fine, Senator Lindsey Graham. They talk tough about liberty, but every time the globalists rattle a saber, they're the first to send your tax dollars overseas to Ukraine or Israel or wherever else. Ben Shapiro told conservatives to go get the COVID vaccine, for crying out loud. They don't care about America first. They were the people that Pat Buchanan despised. On the other side of it, the real America First conservatives, people who believe in Washington's original vision of non-intervention, fair trade, national independence, that's the side Buchanan was on decades ago. That's the side we are on. That's the side that Tucker Carlson is on. That's the side Thomas Massey is on. That's the side Candace is on. That's the side Nick Fuentes is on. That's why they are under attack. They're by the same establishment that tried to destroy Pat Buchanan, although now they've got a lot more money, far more organized today. Pat Buchanan was born in 1938. He was raised a Catholic, educated by Jesuits, shaped the America. He was shaped by the America of factories, of families, of farms. He talked often about the American farmer and faith. And he hated with every fiber in his being American manufacturing being sent overseas by liberals. Buchanan became a speechwriter for Richard Nixon. Then he served Ronald Reagan. He could have had a lifetime seat inside of Washington, but instead he just turned against it. In 1992, before that speech where he ultimately threw his support behind Bush because he wasn't going to throw it behind Clinton, he ran against Bush because he said his party was betraying the working class, selling out Main Street. He hated globalism. And by the way, he would go to these small towns. And I remember interviewing him about this. He would go to these small towns and these workers felt like no one was listening to them. Sound familiar? When President Trump started going to these towns, they saw in President Trump a similar leader. He saw it just as clearly as Ron Paul saw it, that America was handing over its sovereignty to unelected globalists, whether it's at the EU or NATO or the United Nations. He said this on the campaign trail, quote, "We will fight to keep America's factories and jobs right here in the United States." And guess what? He was mocked for it. They made fun of his George Washington belief in protectionism. They said that protectionism was outdated, that free trade would lift all boats. Instead, it sank the American worker, destroyed the American worker. 30 years later, even liberals now admit he was right. Towns across the Rust Belt are ghost towns. China controls our supply chains. Politicians now plagiarize his message they call it populism. It's really Buchananism. Because Buchanan didn't just talk about trade, he talked about borders. He warned that uncontrolled immigration would transform America into something unrecognizable. He said, quote, "A nation that cannot control its borders is not a nation at all." He said that in the 1990s. Now look around. I mean, 20 million illegal immigrants crossing in just the past few years under President Biden. Sanctuary cities collapsing under their weight. I don't know if you saw the new numbers out of Denver, Colorado over the past 24 hours. Their budget, massively in trouble. Why? Well, it turns out when you're a sanctuary city and you're paying for, tens of thousands of illegal aliens, it's going to collapse your tax base. It's going to collapse the money you have to actually provide for your citizens. He was right. And working Americans are just competing for scraps. While illegal immigrants are getting cushy houses and apartments and free, multi-$1,000 benefits. Food stamps. We found out they're getting food stamps. This video is from 15 years ago where he predicted exactly the moment we're in right now. It's actually pretty remarkable. The collapse of the unipolar order, something I've been talking a lot about here on this show. He said that if you criticize foreign involvement in our country, you're called a racist. This was 15 years ago. Watch.
I do believe this. We're going to have the American unipolar world where we're the single last superpower. That is definitely over. I think China is an emerging superpower by 2020. Economically and militarily, it'll be the dominant power in Asia. And I think an emerging superpower. Look, if they just...
But we're not dead by 2025,
well, the United States
I was worried.
2025, what concerns me is what's happening here at home, that we seem to be disintegrating as one nation, under God, indivisible. All those things we had, it seems to me we're losing. We are very much at war with each other. Mm-hmm. And it's over ideology, politics, religion, philosophy, everything. And the terms we're using on each other, I'm on cable as you are. Mm-hmm. And every day somebody's calling somebody else a racist. We didn't use those kinds of terms on each other's, even during the civil rights era.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. But your book has a chapter called The End of White
So when
America.
he said that America's political class was being captured by Israeli special interests, the media smeared him as anti-Semitic. You're a racist. Because he dared to question whether Israel should dictate U.S. foreign policy and that we should be sending billions of dollars to a foreign country. He said it plainly, quote, Capitol Hill is Israeli-occupied territory. They vilified him for it. He wrote a now famous column back in July of 2008. Take a look at this. This was called A Phony Crisis and a Real One. And Buchanan at the time argued correctly that Israel and its fifth column in Washington, D.C. are seeking to stampede us into war with Iran. I mean, think about that. Spot on. But the anti-American organization known as the ADL, which some people call a terrorist organization, the Anti-Defamation League, blasted him for it. Called him an anti-Semite. Over the line, Patrick Buchanan, you're over the line. They called him an anti-Semite. So Pat Buchanan's entire foreign policy was built on George Washington's farewell address. Beware of foreign entanglements. He warned against expanding NATO. He warned against the Gulf War. And he said, listen to this, he said meddling in Eastern Europe would eventually drag America into war with Russia. Proxy war in Ukraine, anyone? Quoting him from 1999, quote, if you keep pushing NATO to Russia's borders, you will have a war in Eastern Europe, end quote. What's hilarious is that the same people who ignored him are now funding a bloody proxy war in Ukraine, right up to Russia's border. Lindsey Graham. Here are a few more. He called Iraq a huge mistake before it happened. He said America should not be the world's policeman. He was vilified by neocons like Dick Cheney and others, and Israelis, and the Israeli lobby. He warned that Hollywood and academia were engineering a cultural revolution that would tear down the very foundations of Western civilization. And that's exactly what happened. When you have Netflix pushing trans ideology on children. So when Trump ran in 2016, it wasn't a movement. It was Buchananism 2.0 all over again. Economic nationalism, border security, non-intervention, cultural traditionalism. Trump made it mainstream, but Pat Buchanan built that blueprint. He created really the first America First movement, and he was vilified for it. And like Tucker and Candace today, he was branded a heretic for daring to challenge the system. He didn't care. He believed that national patriotism was a duty. It wasn't a sin like Mark Levin believes it is. So happy birthday, Pat Buchanan. I've been lucky enough over the years to interview him, and I've always loved his courage. I didn't agree with all of it at the time. I was probably pretty uneducated, to be honest with you, and didn't appreciate it at the time. Like this time when he was taking on Sean Hannity, who was trying to push the Israeli first position of getting us into war with Iran, and Pat Buchanan just wipes the floor with Hannity, and he's not buying any of Hannity's bullshit. Watch.
Fighting proxy wars, threatening Israel to annihilate them and the United States. You have no problem with that.
Listen to the American head of intelligence. He says Iran does not have a bomb program as of 2013. Secondly, if they start building a bomb, we will know it. Third, Iran has made some concessions that are not enough that makes them less able to get to a bomb.
Go back to 2012, and we found out they were far more advanced in their nuclear production and program than we ever thought possible. That's what that's what Obama's own government said.
Your friend Bibi's been talking about Iran getting a bomb since 1992. In 2006, he said they'll be building 25 bombs by the end of the decade. Are they?
Buchanan, you don't have it.
Look who was right. Sean Hannity with his pen in his hand, pointing at Pat Buchanan. By the way, it's hilarious that like 20 years later, Sean Hannity's all over TV doing the exact same thing.
Same stuff.
Same shtick.
Doesn't that get boring? The year 2025, you're still screaming about that without proof.
So happy birthday. Happy 87th birthday, Pat Buchanan. You were America first before it was fashionable. Happy birthday, Pat Buchanan.